Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. My name is Andrick Aldape and today I will be reflecting over the things that I have learned in English 1302 in Professor Bonnie's class. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with question 1. Question 1. What do I know about how to compose posts on social media that I didn't know before taking this course? Well, I learned that social media can be used as an effective strategy to communicate research, and in order to compose post on social media, you should first think about the research you are trying to put out and how you are going to target that audience you're putting out that research for. First, we should think about what we want to achieve. Second, what subjects and what content do we have access to, what story you want to tell, and who you want to target, like towards audience, and what are your aims towards that audience. I learned that this would help structure your post and make it as effective as possible for your final product. The most challenging thing I experienced while trying to compose this post for social media is how I structure my research, because I wanted to structure it in the best way that it could be showcased to my intended audience, but I didn't want my audience to be bored, so I had to figure out a way to keep them like involved and attentive, and I achieved that by having my audience develop their own thinking so that they could be hooked on the video. I structured it a way like I was interviewing them. With this, they would be hooked on it and they would develop their own thinking, um, and they would be informed at the end of every post. So, in the past, I would not really deal with this, and in fact, I was never the type to share anything on social media or take any information from social media because I saw it as not valid information. But now, with my skills to breaking down something and figuring out if it's credible, it has changed my mind, really. So now I am more informed. So in this class, I learned this by reading, readings like this one, How to Create Successful Photos and Videos for Social Media. So this reading helped break down the strategy behind preparing to post research on social media. It informed me on how to capture my audience, what my purpose would be. Well, it got me ready what my purpose would be, and how and where my research would be presented. So it really got me thinking. Really valid information. Um, in the future, I can use this knowledge by for pretty much everything. Like now that we are in a remote world, everything is shared online. So if I want to create a research study online, I could. Now even better that I have the ability and the skills to do so. So I will use this to create research studies and post my research online for social media. Okay, the second thing that I learned would be that planning is very important. Evaluating and engaging with your audience is very, very important if you want your research to be effective. Effectively planning a way to engage with your audience and present your research is very important to do. So in the past, I knew that in order to do something, you do need to do some type of plan thinking, of course. But coming into this class, my planning has become a lot stronger, and it shows on the outcomes of my projects, as you've seen. Uh, in this class, I learned this by doing the rough draft assignments and discussing with the class. This helped me compose my social media posts to construct the final product of the information I was trying to inform my audience about. So some examples from classwork was assignment 1. What was the questions to answer before you create anything? And also uh, creating that rough draft also as well. So in the future, I can use this knowledge when I'm composing a post to be presented on social media, the internet, whether I want to publish something on paper, present something in person, etc. This is a skill that I can carry and use in everything that I do. Okay, now moving on to question 2. Question 2. What do you know now? What do you know now about how research works that you didn't know before my class? Okay, so I learned that going into research, you need to develop some type of inquiry. With the development of inquiry, we can start to look or conduct the right information in order to find an answer to our question. This is research, and if we do research, we should find the research that is credible. Not every research out there is credible, and if you use uncredible research in the long run, it does damage your own research. So, the most difficult thing I experienced while doing research is figuring out if the research that I was going to use was credible. I did not want information or sources that I was using to hurt my own research. So in the past, I would deal with this however I could, right? Although I did use similar strategies, I was never aware that there was an actual structure you can follow, like this one. The structure I use is really helpful. It started from me being all over the place to me becoming well organized in my research with this knowledge that I know now. So in this class, I did learn this by watching a case for curiosity driven research. With this, I was able to understand that research starts with curiosity. Without someone being curious about something, we will not have a lot of things accessible to us, such as the knowledge we know. With research, we can have an understanding of what we want to know. So, some examples from this classwork. I learned this by watching a case for curiosity-driven research, which is this TED Talk. Really, really good TED Talk. Um, with this, it did help me to create and complete, which was the first assignment, which was this video. It helped me create it. So in the future, it helped me create it by develop my thinking and start thinking, and I started plotting what question would be, uh, you know, curiosity, what I wanted to research, all that stuff. So in the future, I would use this knowledge when planning to write essays. I will use this knowledge to research in anything to find a problem or new development in something, then researching on it to find an answer. For number two, on things that I learned, going into researching, something you first identify why and how you want to research that. So that's what I learned. And I learned that there is always a purpose to why someone researches something. And identifying your audience and your purpose and how you will get it done is very important to know when developing that research. So in the past, I did know this, but now with more knowledge, I am able to understand it better. I am able to know now how research works and the process it takes. So in this class, I learned this by plotting and discussing thoughts of how research works and how I should begin my research. Also, Bonnie had us think about a topic that we were interested in further knowing about, and she provided some steps that helped get our thoughts going. Also, she provided feedback to us to help us keep us on the right track, which was really, really helpful. So, an example from this classwork was an example would be when we first created the first social media post, all the developing it took in order to get the first project done. So, a curious problem, the PDF. PDF helped me thinking and start planning, which is really, really helpful. So in the future, like I said before, uh, development in something is useful in everything you do in the real world. In the future, I could use this knowledge in anything I do, really. Everything has a start and it takes a process to finish a certain thing. I will use this in the future in my next years of college and out in the real world. Okay, for question number 3, what do you know now about how to search for or talk about your secondary sources? Okay, so I learned. Okay, so what I know now about how to search for secondary sources is to use keywords. Keywords will help in finding the type of source you are looking for. I also learned that you should always break down your secondary source to identify if it is credible. Knowing the qualifications of the author and evaluating the information can help identify a good or bad source. So, we used the crap sheets for this, and it was really helpful in determining a good source. I set in digital strategies for dissemination, engagement, and impact reading. Not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. So this quote is just simply talking about, you can't really trust what's out there. You have to know if it's credible or not. Just because someone released an article out there and said, hey, this is research, maybe they're being biased towards a certain subject, doesn't mean that it's credible just because it's on Google or just because it's on a library database. You never know. So, the most difficult thing I experienced when searching for secondary sources was finding a source, actually, that would help my research question, directly to my research question. There was not many sources out there that had the right information that I wanted to focus on showcasing. Therefore, I had to research on my own by conducting experiments. Although I did find some good information, but it was very little, but it was still very good. It helped me develop my thinking. So some examples from classwork would be this TED Talk. I mean the article about the TED band talks. What we can learn from them. That just made me aware of like things that are out there. TED Talks are known for really good information, and the fact that some of them were banned because some of the stuff was incredible. That's crazy to believe. So that just made me aware. Also, with the crap sheets, like I mentioned, it did help me find if a source was credible, a step-by-step process to evaluating the going back and forth to the source and knowing if the author's there and knowing what information it's telling me, is it biased or not, creating summaries, all that stuff. All that stuff really helped me. So in the future, I can use this knowledge by identifying credible sources whenever I want to conduct research for an assignment or a research study. So the second thing I learned for that was that there can be a very useful way when searching for secondary sources. Using a Boolean search or using key terms to search on a library databases can really help you find what you are looking for. It can help you skim through the many sources of the internet by finding a direct one that best suits your research. So in the past, I did not really use key terms to search for sources. I would type in whatever I was looking for, and most of the time, I was very difficult to find anything that I could do for my research. So learning how to research with the key terms for secondary sources helped me out a lot. So in this class, I learned this by being informed by Bonnie, how keywords can be used to find what you're looking for, what words to use between those keywords that can help you find exactly what you are looking for. So, for example, my research question was how music affects perception. So, my research question was how music affects perception. So I used the keywords music and perception, and in bold letters, in order to find what I was looking for, and it worked. Okay, so an example from classwork would be this reading. It was Holstein and Aquilin Evaluating Sources, the PDF. So the reading Holstein and Aquilin Evaluating Sources helped me be informed of how you should evaluate sources and some things you can do to search the information you are looking for. So here it talks about how Google. Here it talks about how Google. Um, I'm sorry. About how Google. Here it talks about how Google and how you can use a Boolean search using keywords and such things to find your source. It also informs you some of the things like Wikipedia. It talks about Wikipedia like not being as good. It talks about evaluating all your sources, all that stuff. It's really good. So moving on. So for question number 4, what do you know now about writing a call to action for your audience that you didn't know before my class? So I learned that writing a call to action for my audience would define the purpose of my research, what I want my audience to do with the information I'm providing them with. The purpose is what I want my audience to do, and that it is very important to call them to action because there is a reason I have researched on my topic. So, yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. So the most difficult thing was figuring out what action I wanted them to take. Sure, I wanted to inform them and showcase the experiments I showcased, but I really did not know what I wanted them to do with that information until I figured it out, but it was a bit challenging. So that was the most difficult thing for this particular question right here. So in the past, I would deal with this by like I did know the purpose, and I did know purpose. I was informed about audience, purpose, audience informed, and I knew it was important, but I did not really know like the process to do it. I know there's a process for it. So now with this information, I now know a strategy which I can call my audience to action. So some examples from classwork would be this worksheet. This is a very good worksheet that helped me with planning from calling to call my audience to action. So this sheet basically broke down the steps to engage with my audience. Really helpful. Really helpful. So in the future, I will use this knowledge to create like videos for YouTube, maybe that I needed to take for action from an audience. So that's what I was already doing. I mean, I don't mind continuing on that, and I know that it's pretty much this is used in every research or anything really. Uh, but yeah, I am talking about videos like to inform the people of like to inform the people about anything, maybe like the dangers of global warming, the dangers of anything really. So I will present my data and call my audience to action using this worksheet so that I can help all that when I research my data and present it. So for number two, the things that I learned that putting myself in the audience shoes can provide me with a view on how I should inform or interact with my audience. So speaking from my experience, I can help the audience understand my material better and myself better if I speak from my experiences with the topic that I was researching, right? So also asking others for feedback can help me understand the impact I am putting on my audience. So it can help me reflect on myself. So in the past, I really did not look into this. To be honest, I would not interact with my audiences at all. I thought that putting my research out just like without anything was enough. But I realize now that interacting with my audience and calling them to action can help them be informed better and actually make them be aware of something, make them really understand what I am trying to get them to understand. So in this class, I did learn this by listening, of course, to our professor Bonnie about how you can interact with your audience better, and also watching videos such as the video by Adam Geller on the importance of self-reflection. This video was really good, actually. It was a really good discussion that really helped me. So in the future, I will use this knowledge by to create videos. Like I said, I can. Whoa, okay, sorry. So in the future, I can use this knowledge when I present research online or in person. Like engagement with the audience is something that will also grow your future audience, and also would also help them better understand whatever is being said, whatever research you're telling them, right? So I will use this when giving presentations and posting online, of course. So in continuation, for question number 5, what do you know now about how to compose posts for your audience that you didn't know before my class? Okay, so I learned that I have the power to educate and empower my audience with the information I provide. So composing posts for my audience is important because I want to give them the right information and I want them to take action in the information I am providing them with. So the most difficult thing I experienced while composing social media posts for a specific audience was that I did not know which one to choose. So there can be many audiences to my topic, including musicians, psychology majors, etc. So, but when I got to the end part of my research, I was finally able to identify my audience that was the most targeted. Since my research was on the impact of music perception in children, I believe that the audience would be parents, so that they would be informed and aware about the impact of music and perception of their children. So it was difficult, but I managed to do it, right. So in the past, I would not really deal or think about how my research can impact the audience. Acquiring it and thinking back to that, it has made me realize on how what I said might have caused a bad action to the audience, maybe in other researches that I have in the past. But now that I am informed, I realize that composing posts for my audience is really important and should be taken seriously so that the audience could be well informed. And so in this class, I did learn this by watching videos such as this video right here, Storytelling for Social Change, Social Media for Activists. Really good video. Also, this video right here, Social Media for Scientists, How to Promote Your Research. It just really informed you about the stuff, all this research, and how to further engage with it. So in the future, I will use this knowledge by applying it when doing studies or creating videos or podcasts. It's really helpful. So I am actually looking forward to creating a podcast in the future that will inform people of ways they can cope with themselves, right? So first, I would have to find an audience and presenting it to that audience. So this knowledge will really help with that. So for number two, what I learned that how I compose my research for my audience can have an impact on them. Every piece of information can help or affect my audience in some way. So I have to be and aware about that and do the best I can to present that. So I have to analyze my data to break down my message to know what direction my research is going and how it will be presented. So in the past, I did not really think about this. Everything I researched was never evaluated like this or actually thought about uh, in this process, right? So in this class, I learned this by working on the analysis worksheet and being walked through it by Bonnie in class. Also watching the video, qualitative methodologies and how to analyze qualitative data. So also working on the analysis worksheet. So this video was really good for that. And working on the analysis worksheet, this one right here, really, really helped structure my things. Okay, in continuation for question number 6, what do you know now about working with your peers that you didn't know before my class? What was the most difficult thing you experienced while working with your peers? Okay, let's get on to it. So I learned that working with my peers can be very helpful because we can get something done fast and effectively. So I learned that a suggestion can go a long way and teach you many things because everyone has a piece of knowledge that the other person might not be aware of. So when you work together, you can teach each other things, right? Teamwork, right? So there was no difficult thing that when it came to working with my peers. Working with your peers is far better than working alone in some cases, in my opinion. So you learn more because ideas are and knowledge are shared more amongst each other. So in the past, I would deal with this the same way I deal with it now. I have been a part of multiple studies. I've been in situations where I had to work with the team, so it's really not that different. So there was no difficult experience while working with my peers. Everything was effective and much easier. So everyone bouncing off ideas and working with each other, yeah, it's really great. So in this class, I did learn this by Bonnie putting us in groups and having us discuss questions about readings or videos. So an example from classwork would be this reading, such as the Penrose reading, this one that we're viewing on the screen right now, and completing a couple of questions. So this was actually an exam, and these are the questions we did. right? So it was really good, the discussion amongst Bonnie and the classmates. So really, really good. Really, really good. Okay, for number two on that, I learned now that when working, I learned now that when working with my peers, you need to be thoughtful in what you say. You want to bypass the information you are going to say before saying it, so someone won't be informed wrong. But you should not be afraid to speak out and do the best to help each other in an effective way. In the past, I knew this because working as a team requires a lot of teamwork, and this class just made me realize more that working together is not bad and it can help you in the long run. In this class, I learned this by Bonnie putting us into different groups on the Zoom, and we would discuss questions about lectures or work. So she would put us on Zoom individually, and that was good. So in the future, I can use this knowledge by putting it into use when working in a team. When working with and around others, this would be really helpful, and I would put this into use in the future. So, really good. Okay, so for question number 7, here we go. What do you know now about how feedback works that you didn't know before my class? Okay, so feedback is really straightforward. Feedback, you give somebody feedback, you help them go along the way. So what I learned that feedback can help you, can keep you on the right track or get you on the right track. So a suggestion or a second opinion can always help out someone with their project. Sharing a piece of knowledge that I already know or have experience with can help out the person that needs feedback, and it can strengthen the work dramatically, right? So you should always give the best feedback to your ability. You should never give feedback with knowing any information because you do not know how that would hurt the person receiving the feedback. So be honest and helpful. That's what I learned about feedback. Actually put some effort to it. Give the right information, not just, hey, do this, do that, or hey, you didn't do this wrong, you did this right. No, that's not feedback. So in the past, I would deal with this sort of the same way. I think it is pretty obvious how feedback works. There's nothing to it really. Like suggesting things to help or assist someone is pretty much the gist of feedback, but doing it right is the correct way. What? Okay. Yeah. So in this class, I learned this by giving feedback and receiving feedback, also by being informed by Professor Bonnie that feedback is very important, right? So really, really good. Here's some of the feedback I provided. As you can see, it's not just hey, like you did this wrong, or hey, you did that. I really went into detail with them, and I did some suggestions, whatever they were asking for. I helped them out with that. I provided information. So I even took some of the things she said. Right here I was shaping her words to help her that because that's what she asked for. That's how you put feedback into use. You don't just say, hey, you did this wrong, or hey, do this. You really have to go into detail with it so you can really help the person who is receiving the feedback. So in the future, I can use this knowledge by providing people who need feedback with the best feedback I can give in my ability, right? So when working in teams or just giving out a suggestion to a person, I will use this knowledge, and I currently use this knowledge when I teach people how to play guitar. Because like when you're teaching someone how to play guitar, you don't just tell them like, hey, like strum it like this, strum it like that. No, you teach them and then you give them feedback on how to do it correctly, how to do it right if they're doing it wrong, or if they're not on the right track. So that's one way I use it in the future and now, right? So let's go ahead and go to question number 2 on that one. Okay, so let's go ahead for question number 2. For question number 2 on that one. So for question number 2 on what I learned on question number 7 is that uh feedback can that feedback really works and it can be effective if you are receiving it or giving it, right? So I personally use some suggestions from the feedback given to me. So that's what I learned. Feedback is really effective, and especially when receiving it, right? So if you receive it yourself and you expect it to be good, then you should give it out good as well. So in the past, I didn't know that suggestions could be helpful, but being in this class, it made me realize that even more, right? So in this class, I learned this by giving and receiving feedback. In this case, mostly just receiving it. So right now, I will just talk about receiving it because it did really help me. So this is an example of some feedback I received for my rough draft and explaining my rough draft. So it did really did help me, and I did really kind of get ideas. It's not really much said from the person giving the feedback, right? But it did give me a chance to bounce off an idea in my head and create something. And he also gave me some good feedback to add pictures and to not make my stuff boring. In other words, so that was really good feedback. So in the future, I can use this knowledge by helping out someone by giving them feedback as much as possible because I know it works and it can be very helpful. So just as I was doing in the past, right? I mean, with this class, I was giving feedback and I was also receiving it. So in this case, receiving it, it was really good. So I would, in the future, I would be giving out a lot more feedback because I know it is helpful. So, okay, so let's go ahead and move on to question number 8, and that is to talk about our video blogs. And now I'm going to reflect on my video blogs. I am gonna talk to myself as if I were to talk to myself before taking this class so that I can make myself aware so that when I do take this class, so just basically talking to my past self before taking this class. So, mm, so talking to my past self, right? Uh, I would tell them like what they should expect to learn in this class, and I would tell them what their biggest worries would be, what their concerns and their fears, and what the difficulties they would have, and what are the best ways for them to overcome all those concerns and worries and fears and difficulties. So, talking to my past self, what you should expect to learn in this class is to learn how to research and present your research effectively. Knowing what audience you want to target first will help with how and where you present your research. You should learn how to identify if a source is credible, and do not worry, there is a crapsheet that will help break that down for you step by step for you to identify if a source is credible or not. So just relax and enjoy providing your research on your topic. It'll be very fun once you do. You will have some concerns of who your audience would be and what purpose they serve. Oh, what the purpose would be for your audience. What would they do with that information? But it will come to you with time. And if you do a little bit more research and interact with your audience more by encouraging them with comments and people sharing your information, just engaging with them, that would help. So conduct your interviews, and do your research, and go back to it a couple of times before you start presenting it. Plot it all at one sitting so that you will not have trouble connecting the dots later. With that said, just do your research and do not worry, you got this. So I would tell myself to not worry about finding a credible source because at first when I was going through that moment, I was really worried about if my source was credible or not. I did not want to um, get a source and then do some research on it and then back up my research with that source and then for it not to be credible. So I was really worried about that. But with later that I was informed about what a crapshoot was and what to do and how to break that down, it literally was like so easy for me to find a credible source. So that's why I would tell myself to not worry about that in the future, right? Because it'll come. And also, I did have a lot of trouble of uh, targeting my audience and knowing what the purpose would be with that information, what I want my audience to do with that information. But when I did more research and stuff, I started realizing, well, if I'm talking about how music impacts on the perception of children, So who's in charge of children? Like, who should be worried about this if a child is not, get me? So the parents, of course, the parents of the child's parents, guardians, that was my audience, and with that, I was able to inform them the right way and get them to engage with it, and them knowing what to do with that information. Okay, so that was the end of question 8. This will conclude the end of my final exam. Um, yeah, and I just want to say it's really good taking this class again. I did take Bonnie my first semester, so I really knew what was expected from her, and her lectures and stuff are really good. If I would have to take this class, I would take it again. Certainly, I would, because it really informs. It's really structured well, and it really allows you to express your own creativity rather than just any other English course that just says, "Hey, write an essay. Hey, do this." Like, really, I can choose on how I want to present my research instead of just writing it down on a piece of paper like the boring old school way. Now we are more remote world. If I want to create a whole presentation and post it on YouTube, then I think that would be way more helpful than just putting words in a paper. So I really love that she allows us to express our creativity. Okay, so this will conclude the end of my video. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about what I've learned in this class, and thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.